When we talk about longevity, most of us just picture living longer, or maybe they talk about how long their savings will last, or if they have to keep working into their 70s. What I've realized working with hundreds of women over the years is that we don't just want more years on the planet. We want better years, sharper minds, stronger bodies, fewer prescriptions, more independence, and the energy to actually enjoy whatever time we have. Welcome to the Medical Disruptor, a place where well-versed women can ask the hard questions and get evidence-based answers you won't find anywhere else. Our community is always informed, empowered, and science-backed. I'm Dr. E, the MP with a PhD, and I help smart, well-versed women go from medically gaslit to medically empowered. Solo episodes like this one, I dig into one issue in depth, and my guest episodes are where I sit down with clinicians who expand past their training. And today, we're talking about aging. And I've noticed something troubling in how we've been conditioned to think about aging. We've accepted this story, this narrative, that feeling tired in your 40s is normal, that brain fog in your 50s is just hormones, that declining energy, stiff joints, and growing collection of pill bottles are simply just what happens when you get older. We've internalized this belief that aging equals decline, that genetics determines our fate. There's nothing we can do. In fact, the best we can do is just hope for good genes and to try to age gracefully, whatever that's supposed to mean. But what if I told you that everything we've been taught about aging is not complete? What if the research reveals that much of what we call normal aging is actually preventable cellular damage that we've been conditioned to accept as inevitable? Now, of course, aging is inevitable. I'm not saying that, I have the secret to immortality. I wish. We're talking about biology. But that biology, even though there's going to be some aging, the biology, parts of that is modifiable. In fact, more modifiable than we've been led to believe. And the research on successful aging shows that people can maintain cognitive function and physical strength and vitality well into their 80s and beyond once they understand what's actually happening at the cellular level. So today, I want us to challenge the conditioning that has made us passive participants in our own aging process. We're diving into the cellular mechanisms that actually drive aging, not this inevitable march of time, but specific biological process that either accelerate or slow down how our bodies deteriorate. Because once you understand what's actually happening inside your cells, you can stop accepting that this decline is inevitable and start seeing aging as something you actively participate in through thousands of daily choices. Let me tell you a story about Linda, who's my patient. But Linda, again, could be anyone, because when you hear this, you're going to be like, oh yeah, I've heard this before. She came in saying, I know I'm probably just getting old, but, and then goes on to describe increasing fatigue, difficulty concentrating during her afternoon classes, morning joint stiffness, weight gain. She brought these concerns to her primary care doctor, who told her it was normal. It was normal for someone her age, and advised her to just accept that her body is different now. And Linda left that appointment feeling like she was being dramatic for expecting to feel good in her 50s. And this is exactly the conditioning that I'm talking about. We've been systemically taught to lower our expectations about health and vitality as we age. Phrases like, that's what happens when you get older, or hey, you're not 20 anymore. Basically, phrases like that shut down your curiosity about what's actually causing these changes, and you start to believe that it's inevitable. And when you add to it, your friend probably had the same experience, and so you go out for coffee and your friends say the same thing. Everyone's not feeling great. Their providers are telling them it is what it is, and they just accept it. Now, again, while there's no doubt that aging happens, there's only a certain amount of it that is genetically pre-programmed. Genetics account for about 30% of aging characteristics, and lifestyle account for 70%. Even more compelling, they've identified the people who maintain their cognitive function and their physical strength and their independence in their 80s and 90s. Well, guess what? These people weren't genetically blessed. They had specific patterns of behavior that protected against age-related decline. So these are the behaviors we need to talk about. Yet this research, published over 20 years ago, still hasn't changed how we talk about aging in most medical settings. We're still conditioned to expect and accept decline, rather than understanding how to optimize the aging process. Linda's experience is the perfect example. She had real cellular dysfunction, but was dismissed as normal aging. And I know that she had cellular dysfunction and it wasn't just aging. How do I know? Because when we worked together, we reversed all of those things. So if we reverse the brain fog and the fatigue, if this was just normal aging, we should not have been able to get her better, right? So within normal aging, there are still so many things that we can manage. I'm going to introduce you to a few terms. And once you understand these terms and these concepts, it's really going to change your perspective around aging. Now, the first thing I want to talk about is sugar. Now, before you roll your eyes, yes, I get it, sugar, diabetes, insulin, I got it. No, there's something else that sugar does that will really change how you think about that afternoon cookie, okay? It's something called glycation. Glycation is a process that happens in your body, and it's literally aging you from the inside out. So when you have excess sugar in your bloodstream, and this happens more than you think, that sugar starts binding to proteins throughout your body. Think about it like caramelized onions. When you cook onions with a little bit of sugar over heat, they turn brown and sticky. Something similar like that happens in your body when sugar binds to your proteins. They become brown and sticky and completely dysfunctional. These proteins are called AGEs, Advanced Glycation End Products, and they accumulate everywhere. They stick to the collagen in your skin, making it rigid and contribute to premature wrinkles. While the sun damage and genetics are still the main drivers of skin aging, excess sugar definitely accelerates this process. But what's more concerning is that AGEs don't just affect your appearance. They accumulate in your blood vessels, making them stiff and inflexible, which drives up blood pressure, which sets the stage for heart disease. They build up in your joints, contributing to arthritis, and they even accumulate in your brain, where they've been linked to a cognitive decline and Alzheimer's disease. A massive study published in Diabetes Care showed that the people with the highest AGEs accumulation had dramatically faster rates of cognitive decline, stiffer arteries, and more cardiovascular events. What made this research particularly eye-opening is that this was happening even if blood sugar was managed, meaning people with normal diabetes markers still showed faster aging if their age levels were high. And that means it's not good enough to just say, I don't have diabetes. It's really about, am I still eating sugar that's causing other issues in my body besides diabetes? And it's not just sugar, it's also how you cook your food. For example, a grilled chicken breast contains about 5,000 AGE units, while that same chicken breast that's steamed or slow cooked contains fewer than 1,000 units. Processed foods are preloaded with AGEs, while fresh foods have lower AGE formation. So it's not just sugar. I want to be clear. Sugar is just one of those things because it was a visual around the caramelized onions. But there are other dietary changes that we can do and how we cook our food that can reduce this glycation process. Now, this completely challenges the belief that aging is just something that happens, right? We can't stop time, but we can dramatically influence how time affects our bodies by what we put into it. Here's another process that reveals just how much control you actually have, right? We talk about glycation process. There's another one, which is your free radicals. Every day, your cells are under attack from molecules called free radicals. Think of them like cellular criminals with these unpaired electrons, and they go around stealing from healthy molecules to stabilize themselves. Now, some free radical production is completely normal. Your body makes them when you fight infections, during normal metabolism. The problem is when you have too many of them, when you overwhelm the system. So picture your body like a city under constant low-level attack. When you're young and healthy, your police force is well-funded and effective at neutralizing threats before they cause damage. But modern life creates a perfect storm that overwhelms the system. Processed foods, environmental toxins, chronic stress, and even too much exercise can generate free radicals, too many free radicals, and your natural defenses can't handle them. So when this balance tips towards damage, you get what's called oxidative stress. It's a state where the destruction of the cells is moving faster than the repair of the cells. And this is the primary driver of aging. Virtually every chronic disease, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, arthritis, you name it, is about the cellular destruction is happening faster than the repair. And we've been conditioned to think that these are separate diseases. They just happen to occur more frequently as we age, but they're actually different manifestations of the same oxidative damage. So if we can slow down the oxidative damage, we can slow down this cellular destruction, this disease, and aging. The Baltimore longitudinal study of aging has followed participants for over 60 years, and they found that people with higher antioxidants, those are the things that fight the free radicals, people with higher antioxidant status in midlife maintain better cognitive function, physical strength, and independence 20 years later. Their antioxidant defenses in their 40s and 50s predicted how well they age in their 70s and 80s. Again, if aging just happened and it didn't matter what you put into it, then okay. But what we're seeing here is that there are things that we can do to predict how well you age, right? So yes, aging chronologically just happens, but how well you age, you have ownership of that. Your antioxidant defenses are not just fixed by genetics. They respond to what you eat, how you live, and how you manage your stress. And the last thing I want to talk about is the mitochondria. And we've mentioned it in our other episodes, and that's because they're involved in just about everything, not just about everything. So whether you wake up feeling energized or exhausted, whether your brain feels sharp or foggy, it's really about how are your mitochondria doing. They truly are the powerhouse of the cell. So when you're young, your mitochondria are like these efficient power plants. They're running at peak capacity and everything is going well. And as we age, these power plants do start to break down. They do start to become less efficient. By the age of 70, you might have half the number of mitochondria you had at 30. And the ones that you have are working at reduced capacity. Now that is true, and which is why we've kind of been conditioned to accept that aging just happens and you're going to have less energy and slower recovery and reduce physical and mental performance. But where we can challenge it is that it's true, we're going to lose some mitochondria. And it's true that our mitochondria is not going to be as great as it was in our 20s and 30s. But there are things that we can do to make sure we don't lose too many and that what we do have can still perform at peak performance. Mitochondrial decline at a certain rate is not inevitable. A groundbreaking 2019 study published in Cell Metabolism compared mitochondrial function between 20-year-olds and 70-year-olds. And what they discovered is that chronological age alone doesn't determine mitochondrial health. Lifestyle factors like, sorry to say it, diet, exercise, and sleep, metabolic health in general, were stronger predictors of how well these cellular power plants functioned. And even more exciting, they showed that mitochondrial function can be improved at any age with targeted interventions. This means the fatigue and the decline that we've been taught to accept aren't actually inevitable. They're often signs of mitochondrial dysfunction that can be addressed. That's why I told you about that patient earlier. Yes, of course, she's going to have less mitochondria than she did at 30, and they're going to be operating less efficiently. But that does not mean that her brain fog and her fatigue was just part of aging. There was so much that we could do to wake up her mitochondria to help them work at a better, more efficient rate. The problem is that so many of us completely internalize the belief that this declining energy is just part of aging and that we need to accommodate rather than address it. But when we look deeper, some of our fatigue is not about age. It's about dysfunction that is completely modifiable. And you already know it's going to be nutrition and not having high blood sugar. And there are certain supplements that are really wonderful, especially CoQ10, really specific to mitochondrial function. But remember, supplements won't help if you're still out there eating cotton candy all day long. The thing that is happening in people over 50 that actually makes the aging go faster than just the time itself, is inflammation. In fact, there's a new term that's come in. It's called inflammaging. The inflammation takes the natural aging process and makes it faster. This is why some people in their 80s are great and some people in their 80s are not great, because they have this low-level inflammation, this chronic, low-grade inflammation that accelerates every aging process in your body. So it's true, we can't stop the natural aging process of time on Earth, but we can control the inflammation that's making it faster than it needs to be. And we already know that inflammation is diet, high processed foods, sugar, stress, lack of sleep, any type of toxins or chronic infections. So when a patient comes into me with like this energy crisis, right? A patient comes in to be exhausted despite getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep, afternoon energy crashes, brain fog that makes work meetings impossible, and a general sense that the body's just not producing energy. The conventional workup is important. It's important to rule out thyroid issues and blood count and your livers and your kidneys and your vitamin D levels. And you know, I love my primary care providers. They're amazing. This is never about replacing your PCP. It's always adding to your PCP. So your primary care for many of my patients assume that the fatigue is either mood related, like, hey, maybe you're depressed, or maybe it's just you're aging, part of getting older, because all the labs are normal. And we know that all the labs are normal just means you don't have a pathology. It does not mean that you're actually well. But my patient's fatigue was not psychiatric, and it's not an inevitable part of aging. It is mitochondrial dysfunction that's become so normalized with modern lifestyle that we've come to equate it to aging. But your mitochondria are incredibly sophisticated, and they take the food that you eat and convert it into energy. And that energy powers every biological process. And yes, when you're young and metabolically healthy, these factories run efficiently, and it almost doesn't matter what you do to it. But the factors of modern lifestyle damages mitochondrial. It's not just time, high blood sugar, processed foods, chronic stress, not sleeping. All of it depletes your mitochondria. We've been conditioned to accept this decline as a normal part of aging. But again, research shows that mitochondrial function is responsive to life intervention. You don't have to feel this way. Part of the process is reversible. Not all of the process of aging, obviously. Please don't take my words out of context. But your body has an incredible ability to clean up damaged mitochondria and create new ones at every age. This happens when we exercise, when we fast, when we provide the right nutritional support, when we take certain supplements. We can definitely help mitochondrial creation and repair. The research on mitochondrial aging shows that people who maintain a healthy mitochondrial function throughout life don't just live longer. They live with sustained energy, cognitive clarity, and physical vitality that challenges every assumption we've been taught about what aging has to look like. So here's your aha moment from this episode. Your aha moment is that you've been conditioned to accept a story about aging that isn't supported by science. We are science-backed here. The fatigue, the brain fog, the stiffness, the decline that you have accepted as normal for your age is not true. Those are signs of cellular dysfunction, whether it's age's accumulation, oxidative stress, mitochondrial decline, inflammation. These are all things that can be modified. These are things that will respond to your daily choices of food, movement, stress management, and cellular support. The research on successful aging shows us that people can maintain their brain, their strength, and their energy well into their 80s once they understand what's actually happening at the cellular level. This is important. We have to recognize that we also have been indoctrinated, that we have certain assumptions that we've accepted as true about what looking older looks like. So your immediate next step, start challenging your assumptions about what's normal for your age. When you feel tired or notice your recovery slowing, instead of thinking, oh, whatever, I'm getting old, ask yourself, am I doing everything I can? When do I feel the most energetic versus depleted? What foods make me feel sharp versus sluggish? How has my energy changed with different lifestyle choices? And then, as always, choose one thing that resonates most with your current lifestyle, right? You don't have to do it all at once. Choose one thing. If you think it's age accumulation, about how you cook things, if you think it's sugar, if you think it's oxidative stress, if you think maybe fasting, choose one thing and see how you feel. And again, when you interact with your healthcare providers, reframe aging conversations from passive acceptance to active optimization. Instead of just saying, yeah, I know this is part of my age, and preemptively giving them the reason and just accepting it, you might say, what can we measure to understand what's driving these changes? And what interventions might help optimize these processes? Now, again, they may not change their answer. They may say there's nothing you can do, but it's really important that when we talk to our providers, we use language that they understand. Look for practitioners who understand the biology of aging rather than just managing age-related diseases. Now, that doesn't mean to get rid of your primary care. Keep your primary care provider and add more. Your primary care provider is just one part of your whole health team. Don't forget that. Then you can seek providers trained in longevity and functional medicine, integrative approaches who can assess cellular aging biomarkers and create personalized strategies for you. Bottom line, you've been taught to lower your expectations around this. Stop accepting your decline as your destiny and start understanding aging as biology you can influence. Begin optimizing the cellular processes that determine how you age. Your future self, the energetic, sharp, and independent you, depends on you right now challenging the condition about aging and taking active control of your cellular health starting today. And this brings us to the end of another episode of the Medical Disruptor. You're now part of a community that doesn't exist anywhere else, a safe space for women who want real scientific information, but also want to ask questions without being made to feel crazy. our community is informed, empowered, and science-backed. Ready to go deeper? drfatlamandre.com has my book, PDFs, newsletter, and a link for consults. Until then, keep asking questions, keep asking for more, and keep disrupting.